why are you acting like so? I don't understand. I don't either.
That's because you guys never understood.
Of course Butters has joined them. Hello you beautiful people, let's watch some South Park again.
Isn't this great, you guys? Getting away from it all, leaving all our cares behind. Yeah, and they said the weather's gonna be nice like this all day.
This is exactly what I needed.
Kids, playing outside. You don't see that every day.
God damn it, why is it that every time we try to have a relaxing day, a bunch of assholes on their Harley motorcycles show up? God, shut up! Piss off, you stupid assholes!
Yes, people like that are extremely annoying.
Isn't this great food? You're so right about this place. It's wonderful. You know what's really interesting is that...
Yeah, that's pretty annoying.
What's really interesting is that this place has a new
Just
owner.
continuing on.
On this gorgeous day, we bring these two together for the most important...
Of course, these people have no shame.
Whew! We were definitely turning some heads out there. Yeah! I was pulling back on that throttle, and everybody was like, "What is that?" For sure! Yeah.
Hey, nobody here is really paying attention to us.
That's weird.
It's almost like they're compensating for something. Lack of attention. Yeah, that would be pretty annoying. Men, has anything like this happened to you?
Alright, let's head out.
Let me guess, they didn't tip.
Excuse me! Excuse me! Hey,
Oh no, Cartman, not a good idea.
you guys know
Not
that
a good idea.
everyone thinks you're total right?
Interesting choice of word.
What did you say?
You know, when people like you drive down the streets with your unnecessarily loud motorcycles thinking you're all cool, everyone is actually laughing at you and calling you pathetic. You do realize this, right?
Hey man, we roll how we roll.
Also, isn't that a
If
hate
you're
symbol
intimidated
on the
by it,
helmet?
That's too bad for them. Yeah!
No, nobody is intimidated, actually. Everyone realizes that people who are so needy for attention they need to dress up and be as loud as possible are you guys and 16-year-old girls. Just want to let you know.
Technically, don't agree with that last part there, but... Okay, so if you're watching this on YouTube or TikTok, you might be noticing I censored that bit there. Trust me, I would prefer not to do it, but I'm just acting within the terms of service here. If you want to see an uncensored version of this video, please go to my Patreon. On there you can see extended and uncensored cuts of videos like this. And thank you to my patrons, YouTube channel members, and TikTok subscribers for helping make this possible. This episode is the F word, and it's not referring to it is referring to the other F word, the slur directed towards queer people. Now, we could have a big discussion about reusing terms, but that's not really the direction I want to take with this video, because that's a very complicated discussion. And I'm going to refrain from using words even though they have been used against me. I'm not going to be using this word in the video, even though it has been used against me directly. And I know this episode is responsible for people doing that. One thing that is apparent here about this is Cartman is not using it in the way in which it's typically used in the derogatory sense. But I don't think that necessarily makes it okay. That word still has power to it. Later on, I'll compare this to another episode of South Park, which I think handled a similar issue in a much better way.
That little boy just called
Like he didn't think we were cool. But he's wrong. People don't think we're do they? Of course he's wrong! And anyway, nobody except that little freak would ever say something like that to our faces. Yeah!
Even these bikers are picking up on the fact that they're not using it in the way it's traditionally been used. But there are other words that have been used in similar ways where they're not directly targeting the marginalized community, but they still have that effect, such as when people use the R slur, even if they're not directing at a specific person, or they're using the term gay as a derogatory term, like,
"That's so gay,"
in a derogatory way. That is an example here of words taking on a different meaning, but still using them in a slurred sort of way. To be clear, it's okay to use the word gay so long as you are not using it in a pejorative sense. Even Ike is using that word now. That should be very concerning.
Did that kid just call?
Yeah,
us?
he
Just
did.
Ignore him.
And as I was saying, this is especially common for kids who may pick up the language but not necessarily understand what it truly means, whereas the meaning is very apparent to a lot of us. And you can't really take away that meaning easily, which is going to be addressed later here, but kids especially are known for using these sorts of words, and it may not be in the traditional derogatory sense, but it is still offensive. And by that, I don't mean you should be arrested for using these words. I mean that there should be consequences for using these words. Really, in effect, if someone uses this word, they are showing that they are not in support of queer people. That's what it means.
Think I know what the problem is here. Really? You do? What? Yeah, think about it, guys. You see all the things kids have today? I mean, with their Xboxes and surround sound entertainment systems, kids today are surrounded by big, loud stuff all the time.
Hey, that's right.
That's all it is, guys. We just need to get a little louder, that's all.
This does not seem like a wise idea.
Oh, what the hell?
Oh my god. As an autistic person, this would be very overstimulating for me. What are they in Dr. Seuss?
And I think that together we can come up with a way to get rid of the once and for all.
Sounds good.
Okay, good, yeah. Yep, nice, okay.
What are you guys talking about? Harleys are neato.
What?
I always thought, someday when I grow up, I'm gonna get a Harley. Then people will have to notice me, and they'll have to deal with my for once.
Of course it's Butters who has this feeling. That may be more of a childhood traumatic response, especially with the way his parents treat him. I'm not a psychiatrist, but from a narrative standpoint, that sounds about right.
The wind on my face. I'll go from city to city. Row, row, row. Everyone looking at me. Who's that guy? He must be tough. Row, 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 row. I'll have my girl on the backseat holding on to my fat belly. Sure, she's missing a few teeth, but she thinks I'm cool. That's why when I grow up, I'm gonna be a Harley rider.
First off, it's funny that Butters has a very specific fantasy about a woman with less teeth. That's a very specific and very funny joke right there. But if you think about why does Butters want this, he often is very misunderstood by his parents and even the kids around him. So it makes sense that he would want to live this sort of way, because it's sort of the opposite of what his current life is going through.
That makes perfect sense, Butters.
It does?
I mean, it does make perfect sense for him.
I think what I'm gonna do is find out wherever their bikes are and crap on their seats. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I think that'd be nice. But that's a lot of seats. How are you gonna pull that off? I think I just need 2, maybe 3 buckets of KFC, extra crispy, probably 4 cartons of gravy. Clyde, can you take care of getting KFC for Cartman? Kyle and I will get the spray paint cans. If we do this right, we'll be doing the town a huge favor, so let's get to it.
Yeah!
Okay, so Cartman obviously has a lot of confidence in his abilities, and it's weird how it's all just normalized for them. Very rarely do I think revenge is the right answer. It usually just escalates the situation to a problematic level. Okay, that's a scene only for my patrons, only because I know for a fact YouTube will not allow me to show any of that. So, Patreon. Yikes! Something like that would be perceived, rightfully so, very differently to someone who's queer. That is just the reality of the situation here. If I saw a message like that, I would be terrified.
This can't be happening!
Yeah, that's another example of it. And all this sort of vandalism definitely reminds me of that scene of The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, where they have that message written on their bus. And trust me, if you're queer and you've had this word said to you, you know it can be a very painful word, especially when it comes from loved ones.
So I said to the guy, "You really think I'm paying that much?"
Oh, they're a nice couple.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, this is
Oh
what I was
my
talking
God.
about. Using words like this, you might think are harmless and just mean lame, but they have a serious impact on queer people and marginalized communities as a whole.
Students, I am here because of a very serious matter. This morning it was discovered that in several places all over town, somebody had spray painted the words, "Get out." Many witnesses reported seeing children with spray paint. Now, if anybody knows anything about the kids who did this, you must come
That
forward.
was us.
Excuse me?
Yeah, we did that.
Yeah.
Why would you write something like that and be proud of it?
Well, 'cause we want all those to get out of our town.
Yeah, everyone hates those, right?
Yeah, he did that.
I do, yeah.
Now, just what the heck is going on here? This is not what we have taught you in this school. Kyle and Stan, you've always been tolerant of gay people.
Gay people?
This is what I was talking about. It's very clear they do not understand what they're saying, but the effect is clear.
We aren't talking about gay people.
You just admitted to spray painting that they should get out of town.
Dude, why would we want gay people to get out of town? Oh, they think we meant gay.
Oh, hey, that's not very nice, Mayor. Just because a person is gay doesn't mean he's a
What? You four boys in my office now!
Okay, that is an interesting turn of events there. In terms of what the mayor may have authority to go after, legally I'd say probably vandalism, because this would technically be a First Amendment issue. That doesn't necessarily mean it's okay. That just means you're not going to go to prison over this. But there are still long-term consequences for your actions. And for those of you who think I'm overreacting, you do not have the lived experience of a queer person. These words have power. When you use words like this, you're saying that you hate queer people and hate our families and our community. When you think about how big the queer community is, think about why there would be consequences for your actions.
Often shortened to has been used in the English language since the late 16th century. Its original meaning was an old or unpleasant woman.
That certainly don't apply to us.
Later was defined as a bundle of sticks, and in the 19th century, a gatherer was someone who made a meager living gathering firewood.
Well, they certainly ain't calling us because we gather sticks. There's got to be more.
Shh!
What's that part say there?
Later, the term was defined as any awkward bundle to be carried and was often used as an insult to the elderly, as in calling them baggage. Was used as an insult to women, then poor people, then old people. In the early 1900s, the word became a pejorative term against homosexuals and transgender people in the United States.
That word just keeps changing its meaning. What's it got to do with us?
The point they're trying to make is that the word should be okay to say because the meaning of it has changed over time. But here's the thing, that's true of words in general. If you say, but the word used to mean this, or in this context means that, then you're just splitting hairs. Words have meaning in the here and now, and saying that the meaning in the here and now does not matter or does not have the same effect is ridiculous. Just because the definition has changed over time does not make it okay. Dictionaries are a current reflection of how the languages are currently being used. When most people hear that word, they think of the pejorative definition. When that word is used, it is mostly used in the pejorative sense. So therefore, it is important to put it in its proper context here. Lots of other words are lumped in a similar sort of category, such as the R slur, right? The R slur is used in a very similar way. this episode could be about the R slur and not much would really change. While the examples they reference in the dictionary may seem random and arbitrary, there is a commonality pattern there. They're all lesser groups in society. The elderly, poor people, women. And what's that about women? They're all connected because ideas about gender and sexuality are so heavily connected that in turn keeps things together. Also, there's no historical evidence to suggest that the word linked from burning pile of sticks was because gay people were burned at the stake. There's no historical evidence for that. Not to mention, the way they're using it in this episode is actually quite similar to how it is used currently. The term is most commonly used towards gay men, and it's important to think about it in that context. What is it going after? Masculinity. In both examples, it is discussing a form of masculinity and how it is seen in society. So really, the way they're using it is not too far off from how it is used as a slur, just in a slightly different way. It's no different than if they said it's gay to be a Harley rider. It would be the same sort of effect there. It is still homophobic.
We are really trying to understand this. How is it that you boys think referring to gay people as in today's world is acceptable?
Because we're not referring to gay people. You can be gay and not be a f***.
Yeah, a lot of aren't gay.
I happen to be gay, boys. Do you think I'm a
Do you ride a big loud Harley and go up and down the streets ruining everyone's nice time?
No.
Then you're not a
So what if a guy is gay and rides a Harley?
Then he's a gay I mean, is this really this hard? I don't know.
At this point, the adults should understand what the kids are trying to say, but have an honest conversation about what this means. This is important, especially for children who may not understand the meaning of words. In fact, anyone, if you don't understand the meaning of a word or why it's offensive, you can ask. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. It's not always obvious. This isn't taught in schools, especially in Republican states, so it's important to have this reflected properly. Been holding back on it, but we need to talk about the episode with apologies to Jesse Jackson. That episode is about the use of the N-word, which is also a slur, but directed at people of color, primarily black people. The point made in that episode is that white people should not use the N-word because they don't know how painful it is to hear that word, that they don't know the history behind it. And I think that's also true for queer people as well, that the history behind it is often ignored. As they showed in that conversation at the library, there's a whole lot of history to that word that isn't often brought up, such as when it comes to queer history in general. Like, think about all the uses it's had at important queer milestones in history, such as at Stonewall and other occurrences. If you're queer, you've likely heard this word targeted towards you at least one point or another. I know I have. I've even had this word used against me because of this episode, because someone I know thought it was okay to say that word because of this episode. No, it does not make it okay, especially if you are not part of the community and you're using it in a derogatory way. If you are not part of the community, you do not know how it feels. And you do not have the same historical connection to it that others have.
All right, look, you're driving in your car, okay? And you're waiting to make a left at a traffic signal. The light turns yellow, should be your turn to go, but the traffic coming at you just keeps coming. And even when the light turns red, a guy in a BMW runs the red light so you can't make your left turn. What goes through your mind?
Asshole.
Right! But you're not thinking, oh, he's a homosexual. You're thinking, oh, he's an inconsiderate Harley rider.
This is making insanely good sense to me.
It's not to me. If you get caught off in traffic and your first thought is the N-word, you probably have some internalized racism to work through. Likewise, if your first thought is the F-slur, you probably have some internalized homophobia or transphobia to work through.
What would you call a straight man who doesn't own a Harley but likes them and might buy one someday?
You call him bite curious.
Okay, that's a good pun.
Fellow homosexuals, I believe we have an opportunity here to take a big step forward for our kind. We must acknowledge that the words and are never going to disappear. They are simply too much fun for everyone to say. But we must realize that we are no longer the most hated people on the planet and help the children change the meaning of the word.
to describe those annoying, loud Harley riders. Here, here. We should all be tolerant, but not with these people. They really are.
Okay. Where do I begin? That's not realistic at all. Like, I don't see queer people feeling this way about the word. It's still in common circulation and still very much used. This has the same sort of attitude of saying we're in a post-racial world. We are not in a post-racial, homophobic, post-racial, or post-transphobic world. Not by any stretch of the imagination.
This is Channel 4 Evening News. A new movement in South Park is bringing to question the word. Gay groups are pointing out that the word no longer means to kids today what it meant just a few years ago.
Are you really sure about that? Because I'm pretty sure there are definitely kids out there who use it in a homophobic, pejorative sense. Probably because they've been taught. Just saying, that's how this works. And you can't make a blanket statement like that.
And what is your name, little boy?
Martin.
All right, Martin, can you do me a favor? Could you point to the for me? Just point to which one is the
Well, I mean, it could still be deemed as homophobic. Because remember, queer people don't look like the stereotype 100% of the time. There are very macho gay men out there. And that doesn't change anything here.
Now, could you just point to the for me, little girl? Which one is a
Liberace. When you have children that young, they may not understand the question, and therefore just be picking randomly. And given that they only showed 2 times, that gives about a 25% chance of that happening.
Sparked by this realization and persuaded by gay advocate groups, the mayor signed a new city ordinance today, making the word officially refer to annoying, inconsiderate Harley riders.
I don't think that's how city ordinances work. I know that's the joke, but it doesn't make much sense to me. Especially comparing this episode to With Apologies to Jesse Jackson, I think it just shows that South Park can do a lot better than this.
I bet I do. Well, okay,
Again, this shows that the word still has a relationship to masculinity and how that is portrayed there. So really, is it that different?
As more people in South Park adapt to the new meaning,
Lord should know better.
more and more Harley riders are deciding to ride elsewhere.
And of course, that sign is a reference to the Westboro Baptist Church. And again, that shows how the word is used. Do you really think the Westboro Baptist Church is carrying those signs around to refer to Harley riders?
Fact of the matter is that is still defined in the dictionary as a pejorative term against homosexuals.
It is?
And
Because
so you
it
are
is.
still causing harm to gay people everywhere, whether you mean it differently or not. The town of South Park and its mayor have once again shown themselves to be completely out of touch with the progressive world.
That is true. Because the word is still used in that way. Just because a word has one meaning doesn't mean it doesn't have another. This is what I think a lot of transphobes in particular don't understand, because they look up the definition of woman as someone who gives birth, but ignore the other definitions of it.
Sorry, Mayor.
Oh, that's nice! You made our entire town look like gay-bashing redneck homophobes, but at least
And as an
I'm
adult,
sorry.
you should have done something.
How?
That lady said it's because means homosexual in the dictionary. So we just have to convince the dictionary people to change the definition. Hey, yeah. Then people would be free to call Harley riders all over the country.
That doesn't mean anything. You may be able to make the case that there should be a new definition to the word, but replacing it, no. Because that word, as a slur, is still very much used in society. So therefore, it would not be changed. You might add a new definition, but you would not be replacing it.
4 local boys will state their case to the head dictionary editor, and if they succeed, will officially refer to Harley riders next.
Is Kenny wearing his hoodie under the suit? I guess Colorado could be pretty cold, but damn.
And Tom, it looks as though the dictionary officials have arrived. Entering the scene now are the keepers of the current dictionary and, of course, the dictionary's head editor, Mr. Emmanuel Lewis.
There isn't just one dictionary. There are tons of dictionaries out there. So, well, I guess some of them may have a ceremony It's unrealistic that all dictionaries would do something like this or adopt the same definitions.
Look out, it's a bunch of pissed off.
Again, this violence is representative of the same sort of masculinity issues I was talking about. While the term typically has been used against men who don't fit that level of masculinity, it is still applicable here.
Well,
More
well.
violence.
Now, do you think we're
Yes! Yes, sir, you are total.
Yeah, you definitely made your point.
No! We rolled in, kicked ass, and took it over! Is that what a was?
Yeah, that's totally what a
No, you're supposed to think we're not now!
But then why are you acting like such I don't understand.
I don't either. That's because you guys never understood.
Of course Butters has joined them.
You fellers never got what these people are really about. Freedom. Rebellion against the system. A living image of independence. Solid, defiant, and supremely cool, the biker is an all-American icon of resilient individuality and freedom.
Maybe that could have been true several decades ago, because the mythos of the writer really started in the 50s, but maybe not so much today. From what I've seen of these people in real life, they're pretty cult-like, just saying. Butters isn't that popular amongst his family, his friends, and really, it would make sense that someone vulnerable like that would join a cult or cult-like environment.
Who is this little
I'm not a yet, sir, but I am back curious.
Call back to another
Let's
episode.
kill 'em all!
No, that'll just make you bigger.
No one is killing anyone!
The gays saved the day.
We've had enough. You get the hell out of our town. All right, everyone. All right. We are yeah, we're total and you know what? We like it.
Yeah, we like being.
So go ahead, America. Whenever you pass by Harley riders like us, roll down your window and yell all you kids out there, when you see us, walk up to us and say hello. No, really, we want you to. At least we're cool enough to embrace who we are. Right, guys?
That's yeah. You got it, yeah. Come on, let's roll out.
That's a very bizarre ending, especially when you think about this in terms of masculinities I've been sharing. They were taken over by gay men who are often typically seen as less masculine. That isn't necessarily true, but that's how gay men are often perceived in society. Does that say something about their masculinity and how they try to present themselves?
And that, Mr. Editor, is why they are the true definition of.
Let there be no perplexity. Those individuals are the legitimate. The definition shall be replaced.
Replaced? That implies that the other meaning doesn't mean the same thing anymore, which it most certainly still does. An isolated incident like this, or an isolated community that uses the word differently, isn't necessarily reflective of society as a whole, which the dictionary should be reflecting. Of course, they show another definition of it, as I've been saying, but the other definition still exists! If you enjoyed this video, and my rant especially, you might want to watch my video on Mrs. Garrison's fancy new vagina. You can watch that on screen now. It's another video where I go on some rants. So, hope you enjoyed that video, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.